In this interview, I speak with Alyson. She is 27 years old in the New York City area. She is an oncology social worker and shares what her journey into that career was like and how it is evolving. Let's get started. Hi, Allie. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so excited to hear about your career as an oncology social worker. So if you could just kick things off and tell me a little bit about what you studied in school and where you got to where you are.
Yeah, so for undergrad, I went to SUNY Albany. So I double majored in psychology and criminal justice because initially I wanted to go into law enforcement, essentially. So whether that was, the dream was going to be an FBI special agent for a really long time. But I had figured or learned that I needed to pass like their physical test to do any of that. So steered away from that. And I, kind of went around the thought of also with law school, becoming an attorney. So I did a few internships at my county's district attorney's office, summer internships. And I liked it, but not enough to really commit to going into law school. So when I was going into my senior year of college, I was really, really lost. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I didn't just want to be a therapist or a psychologist. I just didn't see myself doing that. And I really liked the criminal justice aspect. Those were my favorite classes in undergrad. So I wanted to stay in the field of like victims of crime and how to help them. And then I shortly realized that the way that I wanted to help those specific people was through social work. So I started applying to social work schools my fall semester of senior year. And then I was accepted into NYU's Master of Social Work program. So I graduated undergrad in 2016, and then I went right into social work school in September 2016, which I think was a good thing for me because I don't know if I would have had the motivation to go back because it is a lot, right? I mean, I just did 4 years of undergrad and then I'm going for the master's. So it's definitely a lot. So I did the 2-year master's degree at NYU and I graduated in May 2018. So initially where I started, I'm going to assume that most social work schools have this a similar program and curriculum. So we do like half of our week as at class, and then 2 days out of the week are in our internship or field placement. So that first year, I was really lucky to get an internship in, I'm pretty sure it's just New York City based, but it's an incredible organization. They provide amazing services to victims of crime, any type of crime. They have a presence in the court system and the precincts as well in New York City. They have a counseling center, where I was based out of, specific support for children. So it was like, I thought like, okay, wow, I found what I want to do for the rest of my life. And I did like the work a lot, but I did find that, wow, that's not something I can do for the rest of my life. I mean, I was providing trauma therapy to people who really experienced just really, really horrific traumas. And the toll that took on my mental health was really hard. And it's hard among, everybody that works in that field, but also anybody working in social work and mental health is kind of this doing your best not to take your work home with you, not just in the sense of like writing a note when you get home, but also just your clients and who you are working with and not letting it, come home with you. And I had a really, really hard time with that at that internship. So I switched gears completely. And I am at my second internship is where I am still currently employed. We're national organization. We are based out of New York City and New Jersey, but we're national and we're providing a slew of services to people affected by cancer. So I did my second internship there out of their New Jersey office, and then I was hired full-time right after graduation. So I was able to go right into full-time social work. And it's been, a really rewarding and incredible experience. I'm working towards my clinical license, and these requirements are a little bit different, right, per state, but I'm licensed in New York State, so I'm following obviously New York State's guidelines. So I am very, very close to hitting my the amount of clinical hours that I need, so that way I can take that next step and apply for my clinical license and kind of continue to move up. But social work goes beyond that. I mean, social work is in policy. Social work is in discharge planning. Social work is, it can be in macro level places as well. So that's why I am such an advocate for social work and pursuing that as a career, because you can go so many places. I mean, you don't have to only provide therapy, right? You can go anywhere. So yeah, it's been an incredible experience, and I would do my social work education all over again. I mean, it's the best decision I've made.
That's amazing. There's so much to unpack in that incredible journey that you just unfolded before us. So I'll try my best to hit all the key points. But you said you transitioned from working with victims of crimes to oncology, and that doesn't seem like it would be easier per se on your mental health. So maybe could you speak a little bit to how you as an individual in social work in such an emotionally invested field kind of dealt with that when you did try to come home at the end of the day? How does one shut down their brain essentially? And the answer is you don't, but how do you try?
Yeah. I noticed it a lot more with my first internship, but my first internship really, I honestly, it really shaped the social worker that I am. So when I was at my first internship, I really, really struggled with work boundaries. I could not turn anything off. I became really hyper vigilant of everybody around me. It was really, really awful. But the way that they provided their service needed to be very structured and needed to be very boundaried, because we were working with trauma. And trauma, there's a lot of avoidance, and there's just so much that goes into trauma. So the way that we worked was so structured, which has really helped, because not to toot my own horn, I do think I have really good work boundaries, and I really attribute that to my first internship, because I know what it was like to not be able to turn things off. The working from home has actually made it a little bit more difficult. We've been home since March 2020, pretty much that first week. We've been home, and when I was working in New York City and I was commuting from Brooklyn, I had that 50-minute commute to decompress. I was listening to funny podcasts like Armchair Expert. I was listening to music, just observing New York City as well. But without that commute, I noticed that, it was 5 o'clock and my Surface wasn't closed. It was oh, well, it's fine. I can, finish up this note, and maybe it's 5:30 now. Which is not something I would have done when I was in the office, because I had a train to make, right? And I had to get home. So with the pandemic, it became really hard to shut off. So what I tried to be really, really strict with myself. And when it hits 5 p.m. or 7 p.m., because I work 11 to 7 some days, the Surface needs to be closed. I put my Surface, that's what we use for our work computers. The Surface has to go in my drawer. It is not out. And I leave, and it's hard because, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this when we were working from home right in the beginning, is that my workspace is where I live also.
Yeah.
So it was really hard to leave work mode. Like I was work Alyson all day, and
Mhm.
I'm on the phones all day, and I'm providing supportive counseling, and I'm running support groups and all of that. But then I'm closing my laptop, and now I'm Alyson, but my surroundings haven't changed. So I had to also be very mindful of, okay, let's not get too comfy on the couch. Let's sit at the desk and like make that my workspace.
Mhm.
Um, and I think that creating the clear, like removing my work stuff from view, like out of sight, out of mind, honestly, has really worked for me in terms of like making sure that I'm not bringing things home,
Mhm.
home. I'm already home.
Yeah.
But sometimes they creep in, right?
Yeah.
If I have a really hard group or really hard story that I'm listening to on the phones, I'll think about that. But my supervisor, when I was an intern, she had told me, and I say it all the time, and I'm a supervisor now, and I say it to my student as well. It's that, even if we want to, we can't be all things to all people.
Mhm.
And we will do our best, but there is there is a limitation of what we actually can provide.
Right.
Um, so I try to keep that in mind too, that I can't be all things to all people, but I'm gonna do my best.
Yeah.
And the best is all I can do. So
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, I think across career fields, the boundaries thing with work and home is
Mhm.
definitely in play, but I'm sure there's just like an extra layer of
Yeah.
complication that comes with working in a role where it attracts empathetic people, I'm
Yeah.
assuming.
Yeah.
Yeah. So switching gears a little bit, could you tell me what types of coursework you studied in grad school? I'm assuming you don't necessarily have to have an undergrad degree in social work to get into grad school.
No, yeah, no. I do know that, so I didn't have a bachelor's in social work. So for those who did, I believe, so if someone did want to do their bachelor's in social work, they knew right from the start.
Yeah.
There definitely is a benefit to that, because I'm pretty positive that once they go into grad school, they're only doing that 1 year because they already did that first year in undergrad.
Mhm.
But when you're applying, from what I remember in the application process, they mention, like degrees or experience in something similar to social work. So sociology, psychology, probably any type of humanities degree. But then again, there are a lot of people, I think, in this field as well that are total career changers, that are going back to school after having a career or two. A lot of them coming from the corporate world, which I don't know, what leads them to that, but I've noticed that a lot of my classmates who were career changers, they always came from like the corporate world. So,
That's an
and
interesting
that
observation.
yeah, and that degree is not remotely close to a social work degree. So,
Yeah.
yeah, you don't have to have done social work in undergrad. And the coursework was interesting because we had a lot of classes on human behavior, right? Because although it wasn't a master's in psychology, we are still potentially providing therapy and counseling. The furthest that we get is we're able to provide diagnoses once we have our clinical license. So that's
Mhm.
why we need all of that information. We did, we also had like a specific class about groups and how to run a support group, because that's really common for social workers as well. And then we also just had like, what is social work policy and law, and how it's, developed over the many, 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 many years that social work has been around. And then come our second year, we were able to, do some electives. So in line with my internship, I took a class, I think it was just called grief, loss, and bereavement or something like that. I also still took a social work and law class because I really am, the criminal justice field has just such a special place in my heart. So that second year, you're really able to really branch out. And I think that's so important because, like I was saying, the social work degree can take you so many places. So they really can provide you with a lot of specific electives. And then there's also just kind of, your kind of like processing type classes, if you will. A place where you can talk about your field experience, your field work, or your process recordings, which is, for those who aren't familiar, is a verbatim dialogue from an interaction, not a full 45-minute session, but probably just like a chunk. And we really are just analyzing it and processing. And that's like one of the key parts of field learning, social work school, is these process recordings. So we also had a class once a week where we were able to, just specifically talk about field as well.
Awesome. And now, so somewhere along the line, it sounds like you made the clear decision that you didn't necessarily want to go the psychologist route. What was that clear line for you that you were like, this is not quite what I want to do? What is the difference in your eyes and just like how it is between social work and working in psychology?
So the difference is that social work felt like a much more open experience, I think, because, as I've been saying, we social workers are in so many settings that you wouldn't think of. And I just didn't only want to be a therapist. I had dreams of having a private practice one day. But if I went the psychology route, I don't know if I would have the same opportunity to, branch out and maybe work in policy, right? Because there are a lot of macro and policy work positions within social work. So what made social work the path was just that I felt like I could take that anywhere. And if my passions change, I can change with them and I'm not stuck in something. And, of course, psychologists and psychiatrists and mental health counselors, we are everywhere. And, at the end of the day, minus psychiatrists, because they're going to med school, but minus them, we're all in that same field.
So in your role, whether it was your first internship or your second internship or your current career, do you have to collaborate or do you get to collaborate with any other professions or teams?
Yeah, so I think I can speak to that mostly from where I am now, because we're what you would call outpatient, because there are hospital social workers and oncology social workers within the hospital systems. That is not me. I have, we are our own entity.
Okay.
So we get to, we can collaborate a lot with, we form a lot of bonds with the hospital social workers at the hospitals in the city area, because they call us often to connect their patients with us. So, and then the other piece of it is we also do have the opportunity to connect with people in pharmaceuticals as well, to really highlight the actual experience of either being diagnosed with cancer or caring for somebody with cancer. And it is really great because those pharmaceutical companies that do engage with us want to do this. They want to know from a patient point of view what this experience is like. So it allows us as social workers to share what we've heard and what we've seen, but then it also allows the patient and their family to also share their stories firsthand. So we get to collaborate in that way.
Do you have any words of wisdom or advice for anyone considering getting into the field of social work?
Do it. There have been a lot of people since I've graduated with my degree and I've been in the field that have reached out to me saying like, I'm like considering this, like, can you tell me a little bit about your experience, whether it be in actual grad school or in the field? And I've pushed probably so many people to go into social work because like the thing that drew me to that field is that you can do basically anything. You can be anywhere. And it is a lot of it's a lot of hard work, right? I mean, we go through grad school and then we have to apply for our license. You have to pass the test. If you want to get your clinical license, okay, there's some more forms, there's another test. So it is work. You got to renew your license every 3 years. You have to do continuing education credits, to make sure that you're still engaged in the field. But I mean, if you have a passion for social justice issues, social work is for you. I think, because that is a real piece of what we do. I mean, you've said it a few times, like this is a field that tends to draw in maybe more empathetic people who can really tap into that and really tap in and tap into their empathy. But it's also for people who have just the absolute passion for social justice issues, whether it be related on sex or gender, race, and ethnicity, anything. And I think that's also was something that was really clear to me why I wanted social work, was because that social justice aspect is so important to me. I've learned a lot from students that I went to school with and I was in class with, but also I have a really great group of coworkers who open my eyes to so many things and share their thoughts and their feelings. And then we can together like have that group of, we want to do more. We want to advocate for our clients. We want to go and go to Washington, D.C. and lobby for our clients. Like these are things that I think you really get in social work. And I think it's at the heart of social work is social justice and, equity and all of that. I think that if you're someone who is very empathetic and I think is comfortable tuning into it, because it isn't, social work isn't for, is not for everybody. Even the most empathetic people might not want to be social workers. So if you're comfortable tapping into that, but also if part of your passion is social justice, social work absolutely could be an amazing opportunity for anybody. And then there's the career changers, right, who want to give back and just like people and talking to people and meeting them where they're at and advocating. And it's a tough job, it's a thankless job sometimes, but I think that we're needed everywhere. So the more social workers, I think the better off we all are, honestly.
Yeah. Well, I don't think I could have thought of a better way to wrap up this talk today. I can't thank you enough. You're clearly incredibly passionate about your career field. So I think this will be invaluable to anyone who's, exploring that opportunity, that route. So Ali, thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Bridget. It was great.